Okay, just as a quick run through of the two knowledge checks. So the importance of these knowledge checks, like I said in the first lesson, are that you need to be managing your week and interleaving your studies to create some gaps, but to also refresh your knowledge, but not to do this all on the last day before you come back into the lesson. So the reason it's on Teams is I can see when you're doing it, and then we can figure out if you need some help and support with getting back into a good habit. So it doesn't have to be exactly the day, but roughly the week needs to go into thirds. Now, I know 7 days don't go into thirds, but it's effectively doing something every 2 to 3 days during the week to make sure that you're staying up to date. So I'm going to go through the knowledge quiz here and just explain why certain answers are right, why certain answers are wrong, for your own awareness. But going forwards, we need to be getting into the habit of doing these little and often. So the first question, which the vast majority of us got right, what irrational behaviour does this refer to? Individuals assuming the majority must be correct. Therefore, even if you're wary of buying shares, everyone else thinks it is, so they must know something. This is herding, so following the herd. Information failures is when one party has more relevant information than another. Heuristics are rules of thumb or guesswork. So 80-20 rule, 60-40 rule, if you've ever heard people say those things, they're just made up. And habitual behavior is when you are in routines or you are in a pattern of behavior that means that you follow that even if it doesn't maximize your utility. And business objective, aiming to maximize revenue while lower its costs, was profit maximization. And business objective, where the managers of the business try to increase the value of sales to the highest level and maximize their share price. The reason that it isn't sales maximization is it says the value of sales. So within that key part of the answer there, the word value implies that it is a monetary value rather than a quantity value. So sales maximization is quantity, revenue maximization is value. Words which are missing from the definition. So this person did get it correct. Interdependence, they just didn't spell it correctly. Independent is an individual doing something regardless of what other people are doing. Interdependence is relying on other people either for decisions or for help or support of goods and services. So the word interdependence is the best word. Would have also accept connectedness, links or connections. The rational decision for consumers to make when purchasing goods is to maximize utility. Welfare, I suppose, is a synonym for utility, but utility is the key definition from the case. Which order would the logical chain of reasoning be in to explain free trade as a benefit of globalization? So the first thing that has to happen is division of labour. People have to be given specific roles or specific industries to divide up the economy. Specialisation is the next key part. So specialisation and lowest opportunity cost means that you then repeat that, perform that, do one thing over and over again. This creates a surplus of goods and services beyond domestic demand. Then those goods are traded in international markets, which allows the country to then purchase imports at lower prices. And then lastly, this increases the standard of living from greater consumption. So the division of labour and the production of goods has to come before the trade. And when the trade starts, then you can purchase imports. So you'll export, you'll import, and then you'll be able to consume, but the trade comes after the surplus of goods. So you have to create the surplus to be able to trade the surplus. Negatives of globalization in terms of a negative externality. So the initial stage is goods being transported. However, that creates external cost of production. So the first step is that pollution is created. The reason it's created is because the price doesn't include the external cost. Then the price, because of that, is less than socio optimum. And then because of the low price, this leads to consumption being greater than socio optimum. And the last step being the market failure. So there's a couple of ones to shift about there. What that's trying to highlight is that even if you have all of the parts of the logical chain of reasoning, there is a chain to that logical chain of reasoning. So the logical word is that there's a cause and effect of all those. And even if you can remember all the stages, to get to level 4 analysis, you need them in the right order. Money being sent back home would go into the income part of the balance of payments. Politicians said it was unfortunate would be positive. The politicians saying it's unfortunate is the judgment on something that looks, sorry, the word unfortunate implies a judgment, but the statistic there of nearly 9% is positive. It's a fact. Uber Eats and Deliveroo battling to gain market share. This would cause demand to shift inwards. They are substitutes, and effectively, if the price of your substitute goes down, your demand will shift inwards. If we look at the part 2, so it does have some of the same questions in there, but similar questions. So the first is a definition of information failure. Business objective where it lowers its price to reduce its scale of operation. That is incorrect, that answer. And the answer that the student has given is correct. So I'm not sure how that's happened, but sales maximization is an incorrect answer. Survival was the correct answer. Managers try to maximize the utility of their customers by providing higher quality goods, which don't create negative externalities, would be allocative efficiency. So this isn't about creating value for themselves. This is about looking after their customers and giving them a good service. Logical chain of reasoning this time are both perfect. Money being sent back, again, that was well done the second time. That was done incorrect the second time. And demand shifting inwards. So the additional 2 questions in the second part, which are the following examples of actions an economy would take if it was to sign a free trade agreement. The only one it wouldn't do is providing state aid for businesses. Also, the reason I chose that is that that's one of the things that we are trying to kind of not include in our free trade agreement with the EU. They want a provision for not providing state aid, as it can reduce or it can create protectionism within the deal. So if you protect your industries, they are able to lower their prices, and then they could undercut competitors in other countries. But the first 4 are all examples of things that would be included in a free trade agreement. So interestingly, people are worried that a free trade agreement with the US might include some privatization of the NHS to allow American big pharmaceutical companies to compete more easily in the UK, and also deregulation of food standards to allow, again, lower standard foods, which are cheaper in America, to compete in the UK and effectively undercut the UK market, or potentially force our farmers to lower their standards to compete with the Americans. Defining globalization, most accurate word, interdependence. So it's in the, we got this one more accurate the second time round.